Thank you for allowing me to join you here today. I'd like to begin by just going through the agenda and sharing with you what we're going to cover today. I'm going to move through a few PowerPoints at a pretty fast clip and get into the software as soon as I can here. But before I do that, I want to talk about a couple things. I want to talk about really how do you guys work today? What's today's work environment look like, particularly around communicating, making requests, getting information into your organization? I'll introduce MyCommunicator. As Jonathan mentioned, it's a brand new product from Sage, working with the Sage 300 software, and kind of describe what that is for you. Then we'll spend some time in the software. Most of the time will be spent there going through various examples and showing you how that works. I'll come back and just take just a second and kind of recap for you as to the types of people in your organization that might benefit from MyCommunicator, go through some more examples, and then, as Jonathan mentioned, open it up to questions and answers. So today's session is scheduled for about an hour. Don't know if it'll take an hour. I'm guessing somewhere in the 30 to 45-minute range. Just depend on questions. So when we went out to build MyCommunicator, one thing we studied a lot is email and how people used email. And one thing that was really, really clear is we use it a lot. And we use it for various things such as communicating on projects and vendors and leases and customers and all sorts of communication. It's how we receive information. It's how you probably receive reports, whether it be a PDF attachment or an Excel file. It's how you receive My Assistant notifications and how you make requests. And some people actually use their inbox as a to-do list. So email is very much a part of your worlds out there. It's really how you folks work together. People have entire conversations over email, and it's how you work internally with other employees and as well as how you work with external partners. One thing that is pretty much a standard out there is Microsoft Outlook. Even some of the people in the office that are, let's call it less technical, tend to learn Outlook because it's the way they interact with employees and communicate. And as a software folks, one thing we always keep in mind is that habits are hard to change. So we knew that we were not going to invent something that would displace email, that would displace Outlook. That had to be a given as we went forward with this product. The other thing that's out there, kind of a given fact that we're working with, is that Sage 300 is really your repository for your information. It's where you store your contracts, your jobs, your leases, your change orders, your vendors, your invoices, all sorts of information. If you actually sat and thought about all the information that you have in Sage, it's pretty impressive. It's impressive. So what's the problem? What problem are we trying to solve here? Well, when you think about it, much of your communication in Outlook has to do with items that are in Sage 300. When you want to track these communications, various communications you've had, they have to be around the items that are in Sage 300. So you want to track communications for an RFI, for a submittal, for a invoice, or insurance renewal, what have you. When you want to monitor the completion of things, what you're completing is the items in Sage 300, but you're doing it in Outlook. So the whole issue of kind of what we heard was, what needs to be addressed, and is somebody taking care of this? Who am I waiting on? All those items come up in your day-to-day work, and it comes up when you're working in Outlook. And then while working in Outlook, you need to know things like, is this information current? One of the problems with email is email stagnant. It's static. Once you receive it, it's kind of dead on arrival. That information is what it is. Have we received this particular item back? So we have the need to make these two systems talk to each other to the point of this last bullet is when you get information back in via email, you need to many times take that information and put it back into Sage 300. So in comes MyCommunicator. What MyCommunicator does is it provides live access. You're going to see here, when I open up my email message, I have live access to my accounting and operations information. This is your data in Sage 300. Okay? It's going to help you facilitate communications. You can take this information and use it in your communications. It will log the activity, and you also can track accountability. such as who you're waiting on, or who someone else is waiting on, or who owns a certain task. And then you can turn around and update Sage right from all of this from Microsoft Outlook. So in short, MyCommunicator integrates these two tools that you guys use all day, every day probably, and helps you facilitate your business. Okay, it's an Outlook. Let's go ahead and look at the software. So this is Outlook 2010, and I'm sitting here in an inbox. And I've got various things that have been pushed in my inbox. Many of you probably recognize this. These are things out of my assistant that have been pushed to me. It could be various subjects. As you probably are aware, my assistant can be used for a variety of things to make people aware of certain situations that exist in your business. And I can go into these things and look at them. And so when I get them, I have a list here, and I can have an attached report. I can have maybe a list of vendors here with expiring insurance. But there's a problem here. So if I've got a list, a static list, I really can't do anything with it. So the first thing that MyCommunicator does is when I open up these lists, it changes it to a live grid. So I'm sitting here. This is a live list. I can sort this and filter this and move columns around and do all sorts of things. So I've got a live list on the screen here of my Sage data. So now that it's in this format, I can do things like I want to take and act on one of these items. So maybe I want to go in here and take this item and I want to forward it to somebody and ask them a question. Well, if you notice up on top here, we've got a little ribbon that dropped in. MyCommunicator said, oh, I know what this is. These are some things that you might want to do. And you're right, I might want to forward this item. And so when I go to forward this item, it opens up the email. It drops in that information that I had defined. And I can assign it to somebody. And so here I can go in and I can assign it to somebody out of my address book. I'm going to assign it to Dennis Stayskull here. And it automatically addresses it to Dennis. And I'm going to give Dennis a response date. Okay, I'm going to say, Dennis, I need to hear back by next Wednesday. And I want to set a reminder for Dennis. So this is actually going to remind Dennis in his inbox at that date. Now, Dennis doesn't have to be my assistant user, a Sage user. They just have to have Outlook. And it's going to remind them. And I can put a note, something to the effect of, please provide updated, what have you. Okay? And off that goes. So I can go in here and act on this information kind of to my heart's content and send various information out. Go back into my inbox here and look at other things and do other things. Well, let's say next week passes, 2 days passes, and you get this same email back. And you open it up, and one of the first questions that probably would come to your mind is anyone following up on these items? Okay, so this is the whole issue of email being static. And so what I can see here is I can see right here I've got this little green asterisk, and this tells me there's been activity for this particular vendor. And if you look to the right here, I can even see who I'm waiting on. So when that email went out, MyCommunicator automatically logged it. Okay, and it logged it and it tied it to the vendor. So other people who have access to this vendor with respect to insurance can see that activity, can see that someone has followed up on this vendor. If I want to see the item, I double-click on that, and it shows me my activity log down here. So I can see the activity. I can see who I'm waiting on. I can see when they're supposed to get back to me. Another thing that we heard from folks is they said sometimes they have to resend the request. So I can double-click on this, open up the request, and send it again and say, hey, second notice, Dennis, what's going on here? Could you get back to me? So I have quick access to the information I sent, and good thing Alec has spell check, and it will log that second notice for me as well. So with MyCommunicator, you've got a logging capability. We've integrated and we've logged it back to the Sage data. That's really key. It's logged back and it's tied to the vendor, to the job, to the contract, change order, Think of all the various pieces of information that you have in your Sage 300 system. And you can log communications back to that, and it's by subject. So it might be around insurance, or it might be around change order approval, or you may have 6 or 8 different subjects on a job that you're going to have conversations around. Okay? So the information can go out to various vendors. Here's an example of something that went out. So this is a letter that my assistant sent out to a vendor. Okay? Still around general liability insurance, just a different My Assistant task. And they replied. Okay, so up here they replied. So now this time, when I go in here, it actually opens it up in the message view because MyCommunicator is smart enough to know that there's a response here. But what I can do right here is now I've got this information, I need to put this back into Sage. So notice one of the buttons up here is Update Sage. I can click that button and it says select the item to update. When I double click, it's going to open up a little window here for me, and you get to define what fields are in this window. And you can come in here and you can update this information right from the email message, and it will write it back to Sage. Oh, we don't have a phone number on file. Let's go ahead and put a phone number in for this guy. And away I go. So right from your email goes right back into Sage. And you have control over that. In My Assistant, when you set up your task, you indicate not only what fields you want to have updatable, but you also can indicate who can update that information. There's a whole security system in My Assistant now around who can update information for a given subject. And so you can secure who can do that. So now start thinking about all the places where you get information back. Think about all your custom fields. Think about information on jobs, checklists, signed contract, lien releases, receipt of certified reports, on and on. I'm going to show you some more examples here, but you can get information back and update information into Sage. Okay, I'd like to show you something else. So another problem with email, as I said before, is that it's static. And so let's say this is a workers' comp insurance one, and I call up the list, and let's say this has been sitting in my inbox. I know this doesn't happen to any of you guys, but let's say this has been sitting in my inbox for a while, and I need to go in here and see if it's current. I can hit the refresh list, and notice it crossed that guy out. So I know that somebody else got that back. Now, if there had been some activity on this, I would have seen the activity here below. Sorry, my data is not that complete. But I would see the activity here below on the communication that got around this vendor on this subject, on this insurance. So that's another nice feature here. Right from your email message, go back, update the information from what's current in your Sage database. Okay, notice Dennis Daskell just sent me this information back. What that's going to do now, when I go back into this this item right here, let's go back in the right item. What you're going to see here is it automatically logged Dennis's response. See my second notice that went out? My second notice got logged, and it automatically logged Dennis's response. So not only does MyCommunicator log outgoing messages, it also logs incoming. Now, one of the big areas where what we heard from customers that's an issue is sometimes information will go outside the company and the person will reply to somebody else. Like a project assistant may send something out and the person will reply to somebody else. When that happens, that's still going to get logged if they have MyCommunicator. It's still going to get logged, and they can see it right here that yes, we got to reply back on this. So think about all the time you guys spend tracing stuff down, tracking stuff down. Have we heard back? What did we hear back? Is this done? You can see that kind of detail right here in the activity log. Okay, I'd like to go through a couple other examples for you. You also can see activity across the company. So here's an example of cost codes over budget. Okay, and what I did is I sent I'm Sage user, here's who I am, and I sent something to a user called Communicator. And I asked him to do something. And if I want to see what I sent, I just double click and I say, can you look at these overruns? That's what I sent the guy. Okay? Now, I can see that one of the first questions is, has that person done anything? Are they following up on it? I can see here they have. I can see Communicator sent something to Larry, and notice what we do here is we pull the first few words of the message, so you can actually kind of get a glimpse as to what's going on without even opening the email message. You can just read right up the chain here. It's in reverse order, reverse chronological order, and I can get a kind of a dialogue of what's going on around this item. So when I mentioned how email is used to work together in an organization, this is an example where your various teams, whether it be project teams, different people working on different properties or divisions of an organization. Here again, it's all by subject, and within subject, it's your various data, your jobs and your contracts and your properties and all that stuff, and you'll be able to see the communication and the correspondence that's being taking place to get things done. Okay, let's shift gears a little bit, and let's look at a couple examples where think of custom fields. And the example I always use for custom fields is employee information. So let's say I have a little letter here, if you see on the right here, where a letter went out to each employee to get their emergency contact. Okay, I've got a couple custom fields set up, and I want to get the emergency contact for these employees. So the emails go out, the emails come back, and what I can do here again, right from here, is I can go in and update Sage and put in their emergency contact. So think of all the custom fields. Custom fields are those additional pieces of information that you can set up in the Sage database and define additional information. And I can come in here and update this right from the email. Another example of this, and this one Dennis at Sage came up with, I thought was a great idea, is subcontractor rating. I set up a My Assistant task to send out a list of subcontracts to the superintendents when the contracts were at 90% done. And when I open the email, what I can do is I can open this up and I can rate each of these subcontractors based on various fields. And these are just custom fields. So I just said, rate the schedule. Well, and this could say something like 2, very good. This doesn't have to just say a number. You could have a description in here. How well did they do on cleanup? They did a 4, and so on and so forth. And actually, this data then is going to get written back to each one of your subcontract records and job cost. And then over time, you're going to build yourself a nice little database of subcontractors and subcontractor performance based on whatever scale you have. And collecting that data is as simple as just you'd be running a My Assistant task. It'll send either the superintendent, project manager, whoever you want to send to, an email message, and they will they'll get that back and update their information. So one of the big areas that you can use MyCommunicator in is with project documents. And one of the first ones that tends to come to mind for me is RFIs. So there's a couple ways you can use RFIs. One way is you can come in and you can just get a simple list of RFIs that haven't been returned in a specified number of days. And so I'm going to find that guy. Okay. So I open this up, and here's a list of RFIs. Okay. I've got my job, I've got the RFI, the subject, the question, and let's say I got an answer just somewhere. Maybe it's another email message, maybe it's over the phone, maybe it came some other way. I can come right in here, double click on this guy, and I can put the answer into the RFI. Okay? I can indicate what date I got that back, indicate whether it's closed, I can indicate a cost impact. You get to define the fields here. You can indicate which ones are editable. These aren't, these are, and away I go. Okay, so that's one way that you could do RFIs. Another way is you actually can have a little form. So my form came back, it kind of got messed up here, but I had a form here where it went out to this guy and to Northwest Woodhouse and gave the RFI, and it had a little box for the question. down here, or excuse me, for the answer. And when the answer came back, here again, I can open up the email, do the exact same thing like I should do with vendor insurance, and update the RFI answer. Think of all other project management documents. For example, one of our MyCommunicator customers is actually using project management meeting minutes. And after a meeting, my assistant sends out a list to each responsible party on each of the items, their items, and as those people reply, this person goes right from the reply and just updates the meeting minutes right from the email message. Submittal logs, correspondence items that need to be checked off as completed, all sorts of things in project management. Okay, hopefully you're getting some examples. Hopefully you're getting an idea of the various things you can do with MyCommunicator. A couple other things that are nice here is right here, this little button in the lower left. One of the comments we heard from clients is they said, you know what, I get a lot of email. Many times important messages tend to fall out of my line of sight. They go off my inbox, way down low. Maybe they're a week old, and the whole out of sight, out of mind thing is a problem. So what we've done is we've pulled together here again, right in Outlook, this little MyCommunicator button, and this is going to be your list of things that you've been notified of, okay, that you've received in an email. And so you can see here the same functionality that I had in an email message, I've got right here in the MyCommunicator log. But I've got this across all the various subjects. Okay, so I can see unanswered RFIs. I can see contracts that haven't been signed, my subcontractor rating, my request for contact information. I was talking to a client on this, and what they want to do is they just want to have a list of vendor contact information right here. If they want to look up a vendor contact, they can, and if they need to update that information, they can right from here. You could do the same thing for employee contacts or job contacts. So you could have a list of contacts per job right here in this screen. So not only can you use it to kind of update information, but just to quickly see information. There's a couple things here I want to show you that are kind of interesting. One is you can take this list and sort it. You can say, you know what, let's see this list by job. And so now, by job, I can see all of the open items. So here's by each job, I've resorted the things of the issues I've got there. Or I could have done the same thing by customer. Or who am I waiting on? Okay, so I can see who am I waiting on, or resort the list by waiting on. And I'm waiting on these people, and you can see by these people what I've got, what they owe me. So really, really powerful sorting capability here in the log to allow you to look at information different ways. This was something that, as we showed this to various folks out there, they were very excited about. So, in summary, the log provides a central place for you. Here again, it's person-centric for you to see information and update where security allows. I hope that kind of gives you a feel for MyCommunicator and the different things you can do in it. I'd like to just jump back into PowerPoint just for a second here and talk about, just for a minute, kind of who might want to use MyCommunicator. What we found is really there's a couple areas. There's really kind of three areas where you might want to use Communicator. One is people who may want to use Sage information in their communications. It will make these people more efficient, make these people more quickly kind of do that, and then the key there is be able to log those communications. Two, people that make requests, monitor completion of tasks, all the time spent tracking down things. Has someone followed up? Have we heard back? Who are we waiting on? That's all right there, not only in the email messages, but in that Communicator log. People working with others. It kind of applies to what I just said as far as, not following up on something someone else has already followed up on, or more importantly, following up on something that someone hasn't followed up on. People who oversee others or manage, just making sure things that are happening. And then people who receive information and need to update Sage 300. So what we're finding is MyCommunicator can be used across various people in the company. I was talking to a customer yesterday, I think it was, and they said they're want to put a copy on the receptionist. And as the receptionist was receiving information, they were actually collecting vendor email addresses. So they send out they sent out a notice to all their vendors, a little postcard, and as the postcards came back, they were having the receptionist update the vendor email addresses. On the applications front, you're going to find that you guys are the creative ones. We learned this from you. I'm guessing you're going to let your imagination go, and you'll find all sorts of ways you might use this. Here's a very brief list of examples, everything from vendor compliance, lien management, project documents, any sort of discussions around change orders and payments and leases and lease expirations and options and past dues, setup information as far as job setup and checklists and employee information. One of the MyCommunicator customers is sending out an email to the employee and copying the manager and the HR person when the employee's driver's license is expired. They copy the manager so the manager knows not to let the employee drive. They copy the HR person so that when it comes back to the HR person, they can then update the driver's license information. So there's another example of how that could help streamline your processes. Lots and lots of discussions. So I'd really encourage you to let your imagination go. Even if you have some questions on can this work for you, call your Sage customer account manager, your local business partner, and have that dialogue.
Hey, Dennis. Maybe this is a good time. There's a couple of quick chat questions I could bounce off you based on your presentation so far. If you want to hold those to the end, we can.
Go ahead.
Okay, so the first one is, and I think I've answered this one pretty much, but do you have to save the email until the action is closed? If there's an action that doesn't get responded to, does the sender get an alert?
Two-part question. The first part is no, you don't need to save the email until the action is closed. That activity information is actually logged on your server in a SQL Server database. And remember, it's logged back and it's tied back to the Sage information, the vendor or the customer or the invoice, what have you. The second part, the answer is no. At this point, there's not an alert, but there will be very, very shortly. And we're going right now when it's past due on that. So what you're talking about is kind of the second phase of that. So,
okay,
good question.
Good. And then there's two other quick ones here. Wonderful PJ possibilities. When will we be able to use this with field reports?
You can today. This works with Sage 300, all of project management. I'd have to kind of drill into what they want to do, but you can today. You could send this out and update information, I believe, in field reports. I'd have to look at it. But let's pull that offline, and I'd love to explore what that person would like to see.
Sure,
here again, that's how we learn as well.
We've got a question about mobile devices, and I'm assuming the answer is it uses the full version of Outlook. So if you had a device where it's like a Surface tablet where it has the full version of Outlook, you could enable MyCommunicator.
Yeah, we work with Office 365. Actually, it's on this particular screen. So we work with Office 365. As far as devices like iPhones and Androids, we will log responses to emails, but those devices by no means have the technology to do what we just showed you in and of themselves on the device. So you're not going to have a live email on a device. It just the technology is not there right now in those mail client, in those mail systems. It's technically impossible.
Yeah, and this is a relatively easy one, I think. Can you add an attachment? An example would be a certificate of insurance through Outlook.
Yes.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And
definitely.
the last one, then we'll keep going with the presentation. Can you update if all the licenses for that module are being used?
Yes, it actually doesn't use a Sage license.
Okay.
Yes, you can.
And does it work with Outlook 2007?
No, it does not.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Outlook 2010, 2013, 25.
Okay, that catches us up with chat, and we can open it up at the end here for some more.
Okay, great. So this is kind of the system requirements slide, if you will. Sage 300, The only Sage 300 application that it does not work with is purchasing, per PO, but everything else, service, field reports, as someone mentioned, PJ, payroll, job cost, all those applications. My System Designer is the engine. It's the administrative engine for MyCommunicator. It's where you set, you can define things, indicate what's editable, assign security, that sort of thing. So My System Designer, and then on the Outlook side, 2010, 2013, and Office 365. These are really the versions of Outlooks that provide the technology to do this sort of thing. The takeaways, I'm just going to go really quick. Brand new product. Brand new product. Some people actually said kind of a brand new product category. Lots and lots and lots of uses. Let your imaginations go on the use front. Used by different people in your company. And they don't have to be a Sage user. They can just have Outlook on their machine. Improve teamwork, and most importantly, improve your efficiency, make you more productive out of your system.